Alright, so today's video is over horizontal parabolas. Basically, horizontal parabolas either open left or right. In the picture here, we have it open right. This is because the directrix is to the left of the focus. We're going to keep referring back to this picture for our next problem. Alright, so we're given a parabola with a focus of 4, 3, and a directrix at x equals -2. When you see the directrix at x equals, you know that this is going to be a horizontal parabola, meaning it opens left or it opens right. So the formula that we're going to use, okay, is going to be x minus h equals 1 over 4p y minus k squared. Now remember that's on your formula sheet, okay? Now, what we need to know is we need to know the h, the p, and the k. So we need to know the vertex, okay, and we need to know p. So vertex and the p value. So how do we find the vertex? Let's take a look and go back here. The vertex is at this point. We know that the focus is at 4, 3, okay? And then the directrix was at x equals -2. So this graph doesn't match, but we'll just go with it. X equals -2. Okay? So the vertex is going to be halfway between those 2 points. So we're going to say that this is -2, 3, because the x value is -2. Okay? Then we have 4, 3. So we got to find the midpoint between the two. So remember that the focus is 4, 3. The directrix is -2, 3. -2 comes from the x equals -2. We choose the same y value, so now all we need to do is find the midpoint. So 4 plus a -2 over 2, and then 3 plus 3 over 2 will give me the h of 1 and a k of 3. So this is my vertex, 1, 3. Alright, so how do we find p? Okay, remember that p is going to be the distance between the focus and the vertex right here. That is your p. Now, if we did the p value, and so we subtract the focus minus the vertex, if we did the y minus the y, we would end up in 0. Okay, we know the distance is not 0, so what we're going to use is the x values of the two. So p is going to be equal to 4, the x value of the focus, minus the x value of the vertex, 1. So my p value is 3. So taking that information, we have x minus h, h is 1, equals 1 over 4p, p is 3, times y minus k, and we know k to be 3 squared. So 4 times 3 is 12. So the equation of this horizontal parabola is x minus 1 equals 1/2 y minus 3 squared. Here is a you try problem. I'd like for you to try this one on your own, pause, and then play when you're ready. We know the focus is at 2, 5, and the directrix is going to have an x value of 6, so we just bring the y value of 5 over from the vertex. Or from the focus, excuse me. So to find the vertex, we're going to add the x's, divide by 2 to get the midpoint. Add the y's, divide by 2 to get the midpoint. So my vertex here is going to be 4, 5. Now to find the p-value, we take the focus and subtract the vertex. So we're going to use the x values. If we used y, we would have gotten 0. So the x value of the focus is 2, the x value of the vertex is 4, so my p-value is actually -2. Plug it into the formula, x minus h is equal to 1 over 4p times y minus k squared. Now this 1 over 4 times -2 is 1 over -8, so -1/8. And that is the equation of the horizontal parabola. So here's a graphic organizer very similar to the one that we had in our previous video, but this one's about horizontal parabolas, okay? Horizontal parabolas, remember they start with the x minus h. Now the vertex stays the same, except now the axis of symmetry is y equals k. In the previous examples for the vertical, it was x equals h. This is completely different. Now on the focus we have h plus p and then k. In the previous problem we had k plus p. And for the directrix we're still subtracting p, but this time it's x equals h minus p. Now if it is positive, if p is positive, it will open to the right. If it's negative, it will open to the left. And the way I remember this is if I have a coordinate plane, my positive x values are going to the right, whereas my negative x values are moving to the left. So if I have a negative p value, I open to the left, and if I have a positive p value, I open to the right. So that's just a little shorthand way that I remember it. So looking at the picture with the same information, we have the vertex is h comma k. To get to the focus, we move to the right. So what happens is we actually add p to the h. We're not moving up and down at all, so we don't add anything to the k. And then when we get to the directrix, this time we're going backwards. We're going in the negative direction, so we would subtract h minus k. We're not moving up and down, okay? We're still moving just left and right. So that would be your x equals, oops, let me get that out of the blue there, h minus k. Now your axis of symmetry is going to be a y equals, and this is going to be y equals your k value. So it really helps to draw a picture. That way you don't necessarily have to memorize what's in the boxes in the graphic organizers. If you can look at the picture and say, okay, vertex plus p and vertex minus p, then you can figure out what you're doing here without really having to memorize anything. All right, so let's take this information that we know. Okay, first off, if the number out front is positive, it will open to the right. Okay, remember that when it starts with an x, this deals with left or right. Now the vertex, you got to be careful. H always stays with the x and the k always stays with the y. Okay, the signs are actually different than what they appear. The vertex will be excuse me, -3 comma +5. Ooh, sorry. Maybe I'll throw that in as a pop quiz. What did I do right in the middle of the video? And that would be I sneezed. Sorry about that, guys. Must be something going on in the air. Anyways, so we have -3 and +5. Okay. Now in the past, what we would do is we would subtract 3 from both sides to make it look more like the vertex form. So if that helps you remember that this is a +5 and a -3, that is okay to do. Alright, so I'm going to get rid of that, and now it's our job to find p. This is going to be the same as 1 over 4p, so 2 equals 1 over 4p. Okay, let's put 2 over 1 so we can cross multiply. 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 4p is 8p, so by dividing by 8, I get that p equals 1/8. So I'm going to take this information, I'm going to slide it out of the way. Now the axis of symmetry, remember the axis of symmetry is y equals k. Well, we know k is 5, so it's just y equals 5. For the focus, remember that we're going to add, it is h plus p comma k. Well, I know that k is 5, so the question is, what is h plus p? H is -3 and p is 1/8. So when I add those, I'm going to get -23 over 8 for my x value. For the directrix, it's going to be x equals your h value, -3, this time minus your p value, 1/8. So you're going to get x equals -25/8. Okay, so we don't get pretty numbers here, but that's okay. A lot of times our p value is a fraction, so that will leave us with not nice numbers. All right, why don't you try the next problem? Pause and give it a shot. All right, so this opens to the right. Okay, it starts with an x, so I know it's horizontal, either left or right. 1 over 20 is positive, therefore we open to the right. The vertex will be 7 comma -3. Remember your h and your k. H stays with the x, k stays with the y, which means that my axis of symmetry is going to be y equals -3. So to find the p value, I take this 1 over 20 and I set it equal to 1 over 4p. Let's cross multiply. 20 equals 4p. Divide by 4, so p equals 5. Hey, we got a nice p value here, guys. That should make finding my focus and my directrix all that much easier. All right, so move that out of the way a little bit so we can do some work on the focus. Okay, remember that the focus is going to be the x plus p, comma k, or your h plus p, excuse me. So h was 7 and p was 5, so 7 plus 5 gives me 12. And then I keep my k value -3. The directrix is going to be x equals your h value minus the p value. So 7 minus 5 is 2. And that's it for this question. We found the p, the axis of symmetry, focus, and directrix, and the vertex, and how it opened. All right, so let's try another problem where we actually graph it, because when we graph this is going to look a little different than what you're used to, okay? All right, remember, in order to plug things into our calculator, we are required to solve for y. When you hit table of your calculator, it must be y equals. So let's solve for y. First thing that I would do is I would multiply both sides by 8. So I have 8 times x minus 5 equals y plus 4 squared. Let's go ahead and distribute this 8. I have 8x minus 40 equals y plus 4 squared. If you square root both sides, remember, plus or minus the square root of 8x minus 40 equals y plus 4. Okay, remember, plus or minus is very important here. So by subtracting 4, we get -4 plus or minus the square root of 8x minus 40 equals y. So you actually have to create two graphs. The first will be positive and the first will be negative. So -4 plus or minus, or well, let's do plus first, the square root of 8x minus 40. And then the next one will be -4 minus the square root of 8x minus 40. So this is our job to write these. Now the question is what numbers would we pick? First off, I want you to pick the h value, 5. Okay, so I want you to type these in your calculator and then see where we get nice even whole numbers to graph. All right, hopefully you have the tables filled out, but I have 5, 7, and 13 give me nice whole numbers at -4, 0, and 4. At 5, 7, and 13 again, I get -4, -8, and -12. So all we have to do is plot those points. So what you'll see here is the parabola of graphing these 2 points. We need to make sure that we do each side, both the top and the bottom, because otherwise this is not really a function. Remember, it doesn't pass the vertical line test. Remember, the vertical line test means that if I draw any vertical line, it will only touch my function once. Well, it touches more than once. So this right here is not going to be able to easily put in the table function of our calculator because it's not really a function. All right, so let's do another example. If you'd like to, go ahead and pause and try it. Otherwise, if you need another example, you can just watch me. So I'm going to delete this information, and get that out of the way. All right, so the first thing I want to do is get rid of the -1/12. So if I multiply both sides by -12, I get a positive y minus 1 squared. So let's go ahead and distribute that -12 in. So -12x minus 36 equals y minus 1 squared. Square root both sides, we have plus or minus the square root of -12x minus 36 equals y minus 1. Add 1 to both sides, 1 plus or minus the square root of -12x minus 36. All right, so you're going to have two graphs here. You're going to have 1 plus the square root of -12x minus 36 and 1 minus the square root of -12x minus 36. Remember that you're going to start by putting the vertex in the column. So our h is going to be a -3. So -3 goes in both this box and this box. All right, go ahead and pause if you haven't already. Type this in your calculator and fill in the rest of the table. All right, so here we filled in the two tables, and there is the appropriate graph for this particular problem. Now, we're not going to be able to do every problem, but I want to show you a couple of special cases. Simply multiplying by 4 will give me 4x equals y squared. Square root both sides will be plus or minus 4x equals y. Okay, for this particular problem, I would simply square root both sides. So plus or minus the square root of 2x plus 4 equals y minus 3. And then I would add 3 both sides. 3 plus or minus the square root of 2x plus 4 equals y. All right, that's it for today. I'll see you guys later.